Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on our brand new series on the Sega Dreamcast and the Sega NAOMI and the Sega every other Dreamcast-based platform under the sun. I've really been looking forward to doing this, and we're going to launch right into it. I made a little bit of a fun trailer for you guys because you know I always love doing that, but this is going to be a super exciting season about the Dreamcast and all its derivative hardware and some of my favorite games for the platform because this is my favorite console of all time. But enjoy the little trailer and we'll talk Dreamcast in just a second. Hope you guys enjoyed that little trailer. They're never essential, but they're always fun to make. So jumping right into the Dreamcast, I imported this before it even came out in the US, and I've been a huge fan ever since. And talking straight into the hardware, this is the first console that I ever saw ship with a modem because online connectivity was so important. What I've loved the most about the Dreamcast, other than the games, is this AV out, because this is the first time I had seen such good video quality on a console. I used the Toro VGA box, which has both a SCART connection for 15 and 31 kilohertz out, as well as a VGA connection with audio jacks. This console in either 31 kilohertz SCART or VGA looks absolutely beautiful. I think it rivals the PlayStation 2 in graphical fidelity. You can certainly debate me and leave a comment below, but just like the Sega NAOMI, another platform we will be talking about on this season, they both have that crystal clear, amazing VGA analog signal out, and it doesn't really get any better to me for analog signal other than VGA. But speaking of that modem, you could change this out to an Ethernet connector, and back when this console came out, I had just gotten Ethernet, like high-speed internet, and I did buy that adapter. Of course, today I don't really play online much anymore, but it was absolutely outstanding to get a modem in a console. Then, of course, not the first console to do it, but having 4 controller ports on the front was absolutely outstanding. This was a party console. My friends and I played this all night long, day after day, and had a ton of fun. And speaking of the controller, this seems to be a controversial one. You either love it or you hate it. I think it's outstanding. I love the analog stick, the D-pad placement, and the face buttons. Other people find it slightly uncomfortable. But the most interesting part is we got the VMU, or Visual Memory Unit. This was something I had never seen done in consoles before, and you were able to view a small screen while playing your games on the console, and then you could take this with you and play mini games. If you played Sonic Adventure, you could take your Chow from the Chow Garden and give them food and raise them when you're away from your console. And I definitely did that, and I'm not ashamed. It was a ton of fun. The one weird aspect is that the cord comes out of the bottom of the controller, and this can be a little weird. They do give you this little locking tab in the back to hold that controller cable upright, but it's an odd design. There's definitely enough space for the cable to come out of that plastic housing in the back without obscuring that VMU. You just have the connector at the bottom. It's almost a design flaw to me, but it's a really small nitpick. And the triggers on the back feel perfect. And like I said, you're either going to love this controller or you're going to hate it. But for my hands, which are not gigantic, this is as good as it ever gets. And speaking of controller inputs, taking a look at the Dreamcast versus the NAOMI, there's really the same even if it's different. The power goes into JBS connectors versus having that power plug, and the VGA is just VGA out, but you have these Maple device management pins right here, and you can technically hook up a Dreamcast controller to a NAOMI, or you can use that JVS IO board, which we've already discussed in a previous video on a different series. But what is the big difference between these two pieces of hardware? The Dreamcast has the Hitachi SH4 processor at 200 MHz, and it has a Power VR2 GPU at 100 MHz, which is going to give you 720 megaflops of performance. And then you're going to end up in a situation where you have 8 megabytes of video RAM, 2 megabytes of sound RAM, and 16 megabytes of main RAM with a 12 gigabit per second Z buffer, which is definitely doing a really good job. The Dreamcast looked awesome. But going over to NAOMI, you're going to see that but there is a power increase, and it is substantial. It is the exact same processor running at the exact same speed, and it has the same GPU at the exact same speed, but this is a new revision of it. So you're getting 1 gigaflop of performance, or about a 38% power increase. And the big thing is the RAM. You get 16 megabytes of video RAM, 8 megabytes of sound RAM, and 32 megabytes of main RAM. And that Z buffer goes to 25 gigabytes a second. So this is basically, in a way, 1.5 Dreamcast almost taped together. But then we also have the Sega Hikaru. It has dual SH4 processors, and we will be talking about this board on the channel as well for the series. And it has custom Sega 3D hardware with 7 different cores, and it has 2 geometry coprocessors. It is extremely delicate, and I will tell you why in a video link down below, but the RAM can be up to 465 megabytes. But this is still Dreamcast spec. The Dreamcast has a ton of lineage. You have the NAOMI on the left, you have the Dreamcast on the right, but you also have, not pictured because I sold it, an Atomisway board, which is just a Dreamcast with a JAMA Edge, and you also have the Sega NAOMI 2, which has about 7 games on it that you can't play on a NAOMI. I don't own it because I don't need those games, but it is backwards compatible. But the family of Dreamcast based hardware is huge. So you have the NAOMI, you have the NAOMI 2, you have the Hikaru, you have the Atomisway. But taking a look under the hood of an actual NAOMI board, it is functionally the same as the Dreamcast, except it's a little more powerful and the board is a little bit bigger. Just taking a close-up look here, and I do need to dust this thing, you're going to have your ROM chip right here, but most of the rest of it is going to be very similar. You have a battery just like you would on the Dreamcast, and then you're going to see here we just have more RAM chips all the way around the side. But under those 2 heat sinks there, you're going to have the CPU as well as the GPU, and they're foundationally the exact same thing. The only difference with the GPU is it's clocked a little bit higher. Now, of course, the NAOMI uses cartridges unless you have a GD ROM drive, which I do not have for mine, but that was the big innovation with the Dreamcast, is that GD ROM drive. But with modifications, you can pull that out, you can change the power supply. There's so many different things you can do with a Dreamcast, and I'll be showing you some of those in the future. But talking about the games, we got a lot of different variations in North America. We got the white label, we got the black label, and we got the Sega All-Stars release, which is basically like their greatest hit series, but all of the art was really nice. But with Europe and Japan, there were so many more interesting collector's items. The Sonic Anniversary 10th collection, Shenmue 2 only came out in English in PAL regions, and it's a lot of fun to have this disc, but god, those PAL cases, they basically fall apart if you look at them the wrong way. So unless you really like collecting PAL games, don't buy them unless you have to. But talking about the Japanese releases, the Sonic Adventure 2 Anniversary set is one of my favorite pieces of my Dreamcast collection, and the Japanese releases always look so much better than North America or even PAL. Up top we have Code Veronica with beautiful disc art, and down below we have the North American version of Resident Evil 2, and it's just so much better in the Japanese regions. And even if you take a look at the manuals, you get a full color manual for Code Veronica, but you get this really boring, really terribly laid out black and white manual for North America. So I collect Japanese games anytime I can. Normally they're cheaper, and I also love the look. But we're going to have about 15 different episodes on the Dreamcast, on the NAOMI, on the Hikaru coming up. We're going to talk about some of my favorite games, we're going to talk about some of the NAOMI arcade exclusives, and we're going to be showing off some Hikaru footage as well, because that's a really rare and interesting board and game set to look at. But short of that, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. This is just a quick tour about the history and lineage of the Dreamcast and NAOMI and the hardware. If you can do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. And if you feel so inclined, we got a Patreon link down there as well if you want to support the channel. But if there's something that you want to see really badly for Dreamcast, leave me a comment and you never know. Short of that, I will be back on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday with more videos, and I'll see you next Tuesday for the first video in our Dreamcast series. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.